This is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. Remember a few days ago, February 24, it was reported by several major media organizations that the Justice Department had removed and withheld some of the Epstein files as related to Donald Trump. Interestingly enough, as that story blew up, all of a sudden there's war declared, a war declared in Iran. Amazing. A few days later, right after Congress goes out for the week, right after they're gone and they're not in a position to do the War Powers Act, they are being called back in. They are being called back fairly quickly. I don't think they're going to come in this weekend because, of course, the Republicans are in charge. But the point is, this is the reporting that was happening right at the end, really the middle of the week, Feb 24, 25, 26.
Our investigation reveals the Justice Department withheld portions of the Jeffrey Epstein files that contain allegations involving President Trump, including material tied to claims that Mr. Trump sexually abused a minor.
And then so that story hits, and then only a few days later, isn't it amazing, this announcement late last night, really early this morning.
Ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime.
What imminent threats? What is he talking about? This whole thing starts with the week talking about the Epstein files building in the media. Congress was sort of out of session this week a little bit. The Democrats went on a retreat in the House, and next week it's going to be the same thing because the Texas primary means that basically Congress is only going to be in half the week. At any rate, I'm going to run the open and be back and talk about this. This feels like wag the dog that all of a sudden the United States is involved in a war. The same week, the same week as the Epstein files, same week as State of the Union. I guess the State of the Union bounce wasn't enough. I don't know. Okay, so the United States is at war. The United States has declared war with Iran. There's a war going on, and simultaneously, Israel is also bombing as we're bombing. So you see there's a level of coordination between Netanyahu and Trump, as usual. This happens on the same week that there was some news building with regard to Donald Trump and the Epstein files, namely that certain files had been removed as related to Donald Trump from from the tranche that DOJ had put out there. I don't think that these things are coincidental. Of course, there's a lot of coincidences in life, but it just feels a little bit too well timed because now what you have is, of course, wall to wall news of the United States declaring war on Iran. But this is what was breaking only a few days ago.
That some pages mentioning him were removed from the public record. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee called that out today, saying the DOJ's withholding of information could amount to a crime. For more on that and the surrounding fallout, we're joined now by Julie K. Brown, investigative reporter for the Miami Herald.
Remember, Julie K. Brown is the Epstein reporter, the number one. She is the Jane Mayer of the Epstein files. She is the one who busted this whole thing open. She is the one that, seriously, without her, we would not know anything.
Reporting helped expose much of the Epstein network. Julie, welcome back to the program. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
I want to start with this NPR reporting that the Justice Department withheld some Epstein files related to allegations that President Trump sexually abused a minor, which we should say the White House denies. What stands out to you about it?
Well, I think what stands out is that we don't have the reports, even though we know they exist. This stems from an interview that they conducted that came out of a tip to the FBI about this woman who has said that when she was 13, that she was sexually assaulted by Donald Trump.
Now, of course, what she just said is important to note. We don't have any evidence. We don't have the report. We don't have the report. We just have this allegation that was in there. So much like of what was in the files, there's a lot of, allegations, a lot of statements, this and that, but without the people speaking, without the report, without the evidentiary piece in here, there isn't a way to substantiate whether or not these things are true. But it is interesting. I'm going back to this. It's interesting that this is the week when that report starts building, that story starts building in the news directly to Donald Trump. A lot of these Epstein stories have been about other people. They've ranged from somebody was mentioned in an email to criminal activity. And here we have something that is an alleged story, right? A story, I think first reported by NPR, of alleged criminal activity that has not been verified. And on that same week, we get an announcement that the United States is bombing Iran.
A vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged.
Remember, this is also the same week that the Washington Post reported that there was going to be some sort of effort in the background by Trump allies to alter the midterm elections. That's another video. But what happens, of course, when this happens, when you have a major event going on, like a war, okay, a president declaring war, I don't care who it is or whether or not we agree with it or don't agree with it or any of that, that's going to take over the entire news cycle. On top of all that, the Washington Post thought it was a great idea to eliminate a bunch of foreign reporters. So they eliminate the foreign reporters, their foreign reporting, their foreign desks, et cetera, and so on. So now we, I think, have to rely more on the BBC, Sky News, France. I mean, we have to rely on other people to report some of this stuff. There is a report that a school with a bunch of girls murdered bombed and killed might have happened in this first airstrike by the United States. By the way, that is not substantiated yet, and I think it's going to take some time to really substantiate that. But if that's true, of course, that's highly problematic. So this is the first hours of a war that the president claims is not going to last very long. I tend to doubt that. Everybody always thinks, oh, this isn't going to be that long. And well, that almost never turns out to be the case. But once again, we have to rely on other countries now, it would seem to me, for a lot of this foreign reporting.
This is full-blown war that's playing out as a result of US and Israel hammering parts of Iran this morning. And since then, Iran has gone all out, targeting US bases across the Gulf, firing non-stop missiles at Israel as well. Here on India Today, we're getting you every single one of those updates coming in. Those are the images on your screens of what's played out through the day now. This is no longer just about Iran, Israel, and America. We've been seeing explosions ripping through some of the biggest cities of the Middle East, with Iran saying very clearly they will not back off, targeting US bases, any base that's within their range. And that's why we're seeing multiple explosions taking place across the Middle East.
So, yeah. So this is something that obviously is going to dominate the news coverage. Obviously, the White House knows that. The president knows that. They wag the dog better than anybody wags the dog ever. I mean, they know how to change a subject. They really know how to change the subject. And the fact that it's Saturday, February 28th, and that Epstein file story that's on the screen right now, that was broken on the morning of February 24, so 4 days ago. And then all of a sudden, wow, we're at war with Iran only a few days later. Now, sure, it had been rumored that we might be doing that. We might be doing that. That had been previously mentioned. And in fact, there was a briefing yesterday of all the members of Congress that do intel. There was a briefing. You knew it was coming, but I'm not sure that anybody can deny the close placement to this story on the Epstein files. Of course, the Epstein files have been in the news for a while. You could argue that. You could argue it's a coincidence, but I tend to doubt it because this latest one goes right to Donald Trump, if true. Again, don't know if it's true. Don't know if it's true. It was just verified that there were certain files that were removed from the main tranche and that they were related to the president. Uh, we don't know if the underlying charge is true, but and of course that's the thing that needed to be checked and still needs to be checked. But the idea that this is coincidental, I mean, you could bomb at any time you like. Think about it. These types of things can happen really at any time. But at the same time, it does feel a little bit close to this. I mean, I have a hard time believing that the two things have nothing to do with each other. And you can bet for the next few weeks we're going to be discussing Iran because of this.
An unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran.
Now, it is interesting to look at the reaction on the right. There's been some pretty interesting reaction on the right. The things that people are saying, the initial reactions. I mean, I get that Marjorie Taylor Greene is not in Congress, but she does have a point when she says that what the Trump candidacy was focused on when he ran was stop it with the wars, stop it with giving billions of tax money overseas to war, stop it with the never ending war. And in fact, they ran on what they were calling a pro-peace ticket. They had criticized Barack Obama and other presidents for getting involved in foreign conflicts. And now all of a sudden, they're involved in a foreign conflict. And it has been sort of difficult to figure out exactly why that is. Why exactly are we involved in this conflict? Why is this a thing? And somebody put up a very interesting graphic of all the times that Netanyahu has said things like, wow, Iran has a nuclear device, Iran has a nuclear device, Iran has a nuclear device. And he says it over and over and over again. And then he's been saying it for years, and somehow Iran never seems to have a nuclear device. At any rate, there is the report that the leader of Iran will speak. I don't know if that'll be captioned. I'm sure it will be, or translated. I think that happened some 40 minutes ago, so that's probably already happened. There was some sort of a report that he had been killed, and here it is. Israel reportedly believes Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, has been killed. Well, if he was making a speech 40 minutes ago, I don't know that he was killed. Let's see if that was an hour ago. So both things were an hour ago, that he was supposed to speak, and that uh and that and that he's dead. So I mean, obviously both things cannot be the same. I'm blocking somebody that's been naughty on X. So at any rate, there's all sorts of graphics and, obviously graphics and infographics, photos and video of what's going on. Israel media say growing indications that Israel media says growing indications that Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, has been killed in a U.S. and Israeli airstrike. Okay, well, again, hasn't been confirmed. Let me refresh things for a second here because I'm reading news that's an hour old. Um, Next big lie to take shape is right is that Donald Trump will try to use assert unconstitutional powers of 2620. So again, the other story that's dovetailing with this, the Epstein story is dovetailing with this moment of being involved in a war. The other dovetailing story is this nationalizing election story that showed up, the Washington Post broke last week, effectively that there could be a pending executive order by Donald Trump to, quote, nationalize the elections in the United States and require that everybody has certain forms of ID, which is interesting because we don't have really an election fraud problem in the United States, despite the fact that, quite frankly, Donald Trump keeps lying about that over and over again and saying that we do. And of course, what really spiked him to say that was losing to Joe Biden by 7 million votes in 2020. So, at any rate, this right here is an interesting situation because there are two major stories dovetailing: the election voting story and the story about Jeffrey Epstein. And right at the end of that week, just as Congress is departing town, there is bombing in the Middle East by the United States and Israel. Once again, a lot of people are wow, Iran is now attacking Dubai. Really? The Fairmont Hotel in Dubai. Wow. So at any rate, if that's true, again, you've gotta be careful in these first hours and first moments of reporting overseas and in places where we really don't have the ability to know exactly what's going on firsthand. We live in a world of misinfo and disinfo. We live in a world where these media organizations are ducking out of these countries and not wanting to have foreign bureaus and all this other stuff. So you do have to be very careful in the first hours. So the school story of the girls being killed, don't know if that's true. And it's going to take a few days, I think, to really figure that out. If it's true, it's obviously horrific, but it has to be really, really confirmed, and I'm a big believer in confirmation. And again, with these news organizations deciding to pull out of their foreign bureaus and not look at the world as closely as they used to, not wanting to pay for it and all this other stuff, you just have to be careful. So at any rate, when you see photos though and video, that's a different story. Particularly if you see video on live feeds, that's a little bit of a different story. A little bit different. So I don't know what Meghan McCain is whining about, and I really don't want to know. But let's move on. There's some statements coming out. Oh wow, Jim Himes, who is a one of the members of the Gang of Eight on an Intel committee. He is the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee in the House. He's part of the, quote, Gang of Eight, which is the members of Congress who are briefed on this type of thing, wars happening and foreign conflicts. And I think Trump has just broken a record for being the president who has attacked more nations in 1 year, and I think we're only 2 months in, or one 365-day period than any other president, something like 8 or 9. Part of the Gang of Eight who received a closed-door briefing on Iran, which I believe happened yesterday. There is an emergency meeting, by the way, emergency caucus, not in person, emergency Zoom call that will happen on Sunday night. The House Democrats will have, and Chuck Schumer did put out some sort of an emergency message that he wanted Congress back in town for Monday. Everything I've heard, this is Jim Himes, member of Congress. Everything I have heard from the administration before and after these strikes on Iran confirms this is a war of choice with no strategic end game. Well, what else is new for the United States? That is actually something that the Democrats and Republicans share, having wars with no strategic end game. It's not like a thing that only Republicans do or only Democrats do. Of New York Times, which is one of the few media organizations that hasn't been taken over by some sort of force in the background to the right, is really against this moment. President Trump's approach to Iran is reckless. The editorial board writes, he started this war without explaining to the American people and the world why he was doing so. Why have you started a war, Mr. President? The editorial board of the New York Times, that's fairly predictable. This is John Brezhnehan from Punchbowl reporting that Schumer is calling for Congress to return to D.C., a briefing for all senators and war powers vote as soon as possible. They had been working on the war powers vote this week. This is another reason this thing probably happened. They're working on the war powers vote this week, and then all of a sudden there's action. So he never thinks that he has to obey the law. He never thinks he has to pay any attention to Congress, never thinks he has to wait for anything. But obviously, this is a lot easier to execute with Congress out of session than it is with them in session. But this is interesting that and this is interesting that uh, this all happens the week of Epstein. It all happens the week we are hearing about some sort of effort in the background to have an executive order that may, in fact, upend in some way the midterm elections to be held this November, in which the Democrats are widely expected to win the House and also expected maybe to win the Senate. I wouldn't say expected to win the Senate, but the Senate is in play, which that was not expected that the Senate would be in play. So that's another interesting feature of this. This is the story from the Telegraph: 51 schoolgirls dead, 60 injured in an Israeli strike on a school. Iran says, again, I don't know that there's verification of this, but man, is this a story that's going around the world? They are showing footage, and again, still has to be checked, still has to be checked, still has to be checked, because this is BBC and Reuters. They are saying BBC is very reliable, as is Reuters. BBC and Reuters confirmed that a joint U.S. Israel strike in Minab hit a girls' elementary school. Iranian officials say 40 students were killed and 48 were injured. Iran retaliated immediately. Missiles and drones launched at Israel and U.S. bases across the region. Again, you do have a piece of footage here. It has to be verified. We've seen it before where people using older footage and all sorts of games. But now we're starting to get into media organizations that, in fact, know what the hell they're doing, because BBC and Reuters, of course, have correspondents all around the world. So this ain't no, small news organization with a small staff that doesn't have the ability to find out on the ground what is going on. It's very important that we find out what the facts are beforehand and not after. Can't tell you how many times we've had some of these bigger reports and then found out later that it wasn't true. Simple as that. And now in the world of AI, it gets even more tricky. I mean, you do have to realize that AI is deceptive. It's extremely deceptive. I'm gonna put a little bit of more Trump on before I go through some of the stuff on social media again.
Holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983,
Let's start begin.
ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime.
So, at any rate, this is a situation where we don't really know. We don't really know what's verified yet. It'll take hours to verify some of this stuff. Hours, absolutely, hours and hours and hours. But here we go. We said no more foreign wars, no more regime change. We said it on rally stage, after rally stage, speech after speech, Trump, Vance, blah, blah. There's a lot of people saying this, making the point that Trump and Vance ran on no regime change and ran on, hey, we're not going to get involved in other wars and we're not going to do this and we're not going to do that. And now here they are doing it. And they were the pro-peace ticket, and we're not going to get involved, get people's tax money involved in these other places. And of course, none of that is happening. None of that is happening right now, at least. So, I don't know. I think that this is a situation where, obviously we have to see how this story moves. Trump did indicate something about this would only last a few days. That's hard to believe. That's hard to believe, because what it does is it spurs other countries to attack Israel. So it's hard to imagine that if Israel keeps getting attacked by neighboring countries, that somehow or another that's going to last 2 days. Like, I don't see that lasting 2 days. That's hard to believe. And so I think that this goes on for at least a few weeks, but who knows? I just happen to think that this is definitely related to the news that was building in the background, and they wait until the optimal time to say something. You do have two stories that they really didn't want anybody paying attention to. Is the election story, the election interference story, and the other story they didn't want anybody paying attention to, of course, was the Epstein story. The Epstein story, again, Epstein has been in the news for quite some time, so it's not like they just invented that. I mean, it's been in the news for quite a few weeks since the files were released. But there was a particular story related to Donald Trump. Again, please hit the like button, by the way, for those who may have missed it. That story happening was closely, it's the same week. These things are happening in the same week, and the fact that they're happening in the same week is really some interesting timing. Interesting time. Again, this is February 24. Again, this week it was broken initially by NPR, but then everybody, of course, picked up on the same story. So, at any rate, the fact that these pages have been removed from the public record and we can't see them and we haven't heard from the person who is alleging that, and I think that's a major point to make. We have not heard from the person alleging that. So the person alleging that can step forward in first person, one would think, at any point, and we haven't seen that happen. We just know that some files were removed. That was widely reported. It was not denied by DOJ. DOJ kind of just went silent, which is sort of their sign of, you got us, but we don't really want to talk about it. And so 4 days later, we're in a war with Iran. 4 days later, on the Saturday after that report, the United States is in a war with Iran. That's just, like I said, interesting timing. Interesting timing. A lot of the neocon types are very unhappy, whining, and really, quite frankly, a lot of people on the far right, Nick Fuentes and all those people, because this is going against the whole America First agenda. That America First thing doesn't have anything to do with bombing foreign countries and having tax money go over there and spend on this and having our troops get killed. That's not what America First people were talking about. They were talking about getting things fixed here in the United States first before getting involved with anybody else. I'm typing in America First to search X to see how many people, and of course, this X is, of course, a right-leaning platform, so it's always interesting to see what's being said. They campaigned on no more wars, America First, releasing the Epstein files to drain the swamp, lowering prices. Instead, they've betrayed the American people. And they did. They ran on this sort of pro-peace, let's stay out of it, isolationist type of thing. And now we've got a situation where they're bombing Iran. I mean, it is wild. It is wild. And it is a serious red flag when they bomb a nation on a Friday night. I agree with that. Like the fact that it was Friday night and the Congress is out of session, and it just happens to be the case that the bombing just happens in the middle of the night. Actually, apparently it was the middle of the day where they bombed, but it was the middle of the night in the United States. And Congress really is out of position in terms of being able to react to this until 2 days from now, until really Monday morning. That is really the first time they're going to get an opportunity to say or do anything. So I do think that there is something to the timing. I don't care what anybody says. There are no coincidences in politics. Yeah, do we invade Venezuela on a Friday night? I don't even remember. Going through the comments here, and I go to comments, the ones I agree with and the ones I don't agree with, because I can take it. We invaded Venezuela on a Friday night, the week the Epstein files were supposed to be released. That's right. I totally forgot about that. I go left Twitter. Twitler. I go left Twitler. That's a good point. We invade Iran the Friday night after the Clintons testifying. The Clintons did win that round. Hillary definitely won that Epstein file round of testimony. I mean, she didn't have anything to do with it. At least you could argue that Bill Clinton was in pretty close contact, certainly, with Jeffrey Epstein. He was in photos, he was in video. I mean, Bill Clinton was on the scene. Hillary Clinton wasn't. So Hillary Clinton was like, what are you talking about? But I think, even though I think deposing either of them doesn't really make any sense, but if you're going to depose Bill Clinton and he was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, then it would seem to me that that there are certain people in the Trump orbit that definitely need to be deposed. Melania being number one. I mean, Melania is in a ton of photos with the Epstein folks and with Jeffrey Epstein, with Ghislaine Maxwell. So come on now, like if we're doing Hillary Clinton, then should definitely be doing Ghislaine Maxwell. If we're just doing facts, if we're doing politics, I get it. They were never gonna. Obviously, Melania Trump is never going to be deposed. I mean, we get that because that's politics and not facts. If we're doing facts, yeah, okay. Bill Clinton was in photos with Jeffrey Epstein. Bill Clinton was in photos with Jeffrey Epstein. Looked like he was sort of in close contact. So I could see that, but if we're doing that, then I'm not sure how Melania gets off the hook. The Doge stops wagging when these people testify under oath and the complete Epstein files are released. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Attacking another nation unprovoked is evil. Attacking another nation with no real reason behind it, we don't see anything. I'm telling you, the War Powers Act should have played a part in this. Congress should have. I know Congress doesn't want to take that tough vote. I think everybody knows that Congress doesn't want to take that tough vote. And so by President Trump just doing it, it's like Congress can avoid taking the tough vote. But at some point, there was a bipartisan effort there, though. So it wasn't just the Democrats saying that the War Powers Act should be invoked. The Republicans were saying it, and not just your usual suspects. Okay, and Rand Paul did put something out, but it's not just the Democrats and then that's it. Although I know that Chuck Schumer calling for an emergency return to Washington will be a call likely unheeded. He, of course, has no control as a member of the minority party in the U.S. Senate. It would have to be John Thune, the Republican majority leader, to make that decision. It's highly unlikely that he would. I don't know if this is a true story, but again, I take all questions here. True story. There were black hostages held in Iran and were among the first released, but unlike their white counterparts, received no compensation. Really? I don't know if that's true or not. I have to check that one. Offhand, just sitting here, reading this. I don't know if this is true. But this is an interesting point if it is true. It's a very interesting point if it is true. Please hit the like button. Hitting the like button pushes these videos out. That's why every time you look at a video, everybody's annoying you about hitting the like button. If you can subscribe, that'd be even better. That'd really push it out. But I get it. I get people don't necessarily want to subscribe to every video that they see, every person that they see. But hitting the like button really doesn't cost you anything. I don't have the like button counter on. I should turn it on so that people can see it. I can see it in the background, and YouTube can see it in the background. But please hit the like button. Thanks, I really appreciate it. But yeah, that would be an interesting point right there. If they held it, some people got compensation and some didn't. I'm telling you, in the end, it's all about the money. There's no doubt about that. The Doge stops wagging after. I read that one. Let's go up to the top, Mike. The same person who ran their whole campaign saying that he wouldn't get the country into any wars is now bombing the hell out of someone again. He bombed Nigeria, Venezuela, Yemen, Somalia, threatening Cuba. There's a chart. Again, I should find it. There's a chart that somebody put up at how many countries Donald Trump has bombed. I think it's 9. I think we're at 9, which is really incredible when you think about that. It is absolutely, absolutely incredible. Create a diversion always. The racist, laxist, create a diversion. Creating a diversion is very easy with this media because the media never focuses on anything. The media, it's very hard to get the media to focus on anything for any really long period of time. Remember, Nancy Guthrie, that story was like the biggest story of the first 2 weeks of February, and now it's barely on television. And you can just see the fickle nature of the media, how it concentrates on something for a while and it can't handle it. And Steve Bannon's right about that theory of filling the box with you know what. This is a perfect opportunity for Trump supporters to enlist for service in the Middle East. We know that ain't happening. Donald Trump, of course, has none of his kids, nothing. Nobody has served in the military. It's pretty amazing. For all the bombing that they do and all the confrontations and all the wars that they start and everything else, none of them have served in the military. Like, everybody's such a tough person when it's somebody else's kid that's at risk, right? When it's somebody else's kid whose life is at risk, Everybody's bold, everybody's brave. The minute that your kid has to be sent out there, you think differently about this entire situation, as anybody would. Human nature. But better hope that what he's saying about, hey, let's just do this for 2 days and all that, hopefully that is true. I don't know if it is or not, but I hope it is. There are some military experts that were on. Malcolm Nance was on this morning. He's been on several hours and was like up all night. And of course, Malcolm Nance has been over in the Middle East as somebody who has had to fight our wars. And he said, there ain't no way this is going to be 2 or 3 days. No way. No way. I have a hard time believing that as well. I mean, how would it be 2 or 3 days? I mean, just the fact that you bombed another country means that they are going to keep bombing. You might end it in 2 or 3 days, but they don't have to end it in 2 or 3 days. And now, of course, we have this terrible story about the 51 students. Again, has to be verified. I'm not just assuming that these things are true. It takes a while to verify these things, certainly overseas. And of course, with the Washington Post getting really lazy and cheap about not having foreign correspondents in certain bureaus overseas, now you just don't know. Remember, this is the same Washington Post that pulled out of Ukraine, pulled the bureau out of Ukraine with a correspondent sitting in a war zone. And she had to basically post to social media for us to understand where she was. So it's going to be hard to verify unless, like I said, it's a BBC, Reuters, Sky News, France. I mean, someone over there in that space is going to have to do the reporting for us to really know what's going on. And we're going to have to really rely heavily on video, of course. And again, I take all comers when it comes to the questions, even the ones I disagree with. This has nothing to do with the Epstein files. I don't know about that. All I know is a major story broke on the Epstein files involving the president 4 days ago. And 4 days after that, we're bombing Iran. That's just a fact. Epstein file story comes out, and now we're in a war in the Middle East from a guy that campaigned on not going to war in the Middle East. Okay, so now he's going to war in the Middle East. So I just think that that's really, I mean, that to me is you want to go to war. Or you want to distract from something. And once again, if you just look at the role of stories, this is just searching YouTube. Of course, you could search anything. I'm looking at YouTube, but if we just go over to the usual suspects like the New York Times, for example, obviously this is the front page, and this front page will dominate for days and hours on end. This is going to go on. And Trump is very good at media, very good at understanding how to distract, very good at understanding how to change the subject. He's not a fool. He might be, certainly a little bit crazy, and he certainly might even have dementia. We don't know. I mean, listening to the doctors online, I think that's in play. But what he's not stupid about is how to do the media, how to play the media. He is extremely good at it on a basic level and on a more complex level, as we saw at the State of the Union. He understands the emotional triggers. He understands the levels to pull. He understands what the media does in terms of how they change off into something else. He gets that. He totally gets that, and he's good at it. And there's nobody that can tell me that isn't. I mean, the Democrats haven't figured out how to fight it. Going back to the comments, New York Times. During the 1979 Iraq War, hostage, somebody, wow, forensic accountant. You know more about this history, certainly, than I do. I cover, generally speaking, domestic politics. These are some pretty interesting facts on the screen. Sounds about right. So, yeah, I should go check these things, obviously, before I go throwing them up. But you know what, forensic accountant, you've had a pretty freaking good track record, so we'll go with it. We'll go with it. Some interesting facts about the Middle East and the United States involvement in the Middle East. It is hard to tell, how this will end, when this will end, and how this will turn out. But I think it's pretty safe to say it's not going to end anytime soon. These are the types of things that go on for weeks. And when you antagonize another country or bomb another country or kill people in another country, it has major, major, major ramifications. Major ramifications, and that is what people need to understand. But at the same time, we need to be careful about checking the facts in the world that we live in, of fake AI videos and everything else. I still say that this report, and this is PBS really copying what NPR reported, but this is verbatim what that report was 4 days ago. So I'm stopping that there only because I don't want to get demonetized, and I'm going to put the link for the whole thing. Really, the most important thing about that is the part where Julie K. Brown comes on, which he was about to introduce her. And again, this is the February 24 report on the Epstein files. And that February 24 report on the Epstein files was huge. It was starting to become widely reported right at the time we started to get into the State of the Union coverage. State of the Union coverage, of course, dominated really, I think, Tuesday and Wednesday. And then there were some other things that came up that dominated, but then we had that election interference story, which was interesting. Maybe, perhaps, Wendy, perhaps. And so there's big stories that happened this week. You had the State of the Union, you had that election interference story, and the week ain't over. The week don't end till tomorrow. Again, today is February 28th. It's 11:44 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States. And the United States is engaged in a war overseas with Iran once again. Lot going on there. It just is something that I don't think anybody is asking for, Democrat or Republican. I don't think the Republicans are all that excited. The only people who get really excited about this is like, Fetterman and a few other members that feel like, I think they have the view that basically no matter what it is, no matter what the policy is, no matter what the details are, they think that Netanyahu is always right. That's just what it is. That's what Fetterman is. I don't think I've ever seen Fetterman disagree with anything that Netanyahu said. Now, I could be wrong. If I am, somebody please put it in the chat. But I very rarely have I ever seen John Fetterman, who, by the way, is U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania, very pro-Israel. Look, everybody's got the right to their views, their opinion, all good. But, there are certain times when you just want some analytical analysis, political analysis based on some facts. And when you see billions of dollars going overseas with all the problems we have here in the United States, it is problematic. I mean, you could have paid for healthcare many times over for probably 5 years straight, all the money that we've sent overseas, particularly to the Middle East. I don't think anybody could deny that. So there was a big America First movement when Trump was running in 2024. His campaign was focused on an America First view of the world. I wouldn't say completely isolationist, but certainly let's take care of the United States first. Trump got up and said that a million times during the campaign. He was, in fact, talking about how it was problematic that we're having forever wars and we're always at war and we're always spending all this money and let's focus on here and America first. That I think got a lot of attention, not only on the right, but, this is something that's a theme that Bernie Sanders picked up on many years. He didn't quite put it the same way, but certainly the focus on the American people first and everybody else second, that was there. And particularly as it pertains to social safety networks, social networks and things like healthcare and housing, and obviously the things that people really need to survive in any country. But now here we are with a situation where the president who said all that is now bombing Iran. I mean, this is like amazing. And again, it's anytime there's a conflict like this, you're gonna have a situation where innocent people get killed. Everybody understands that. This is actually not a bad question from Wendy Wood. Why weren't they released? I don't know. It's kind of a strange thing that they weren't. For whatever reason, the Epstein files were not a point of focus for the Biden administration. But, the Biden administration And I'll tell you, I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I have no problem criticizing certain things that I see the Democrats do that I think are mistakes, big mistakes. I mean, the other big mistake that Biden made was the whole thing with allowing TikTok to get banned on this idea somehow that we were being spied on by TikTok. Every social media platform is spying on your personal information, TikTok and everybody else. So they created this, oh my God, China's spying on us. Now that's led to TikTok landing in the hands of some private entity that's going to basically make it a political platform. Say what you want about Chinese. I don't think that they were interested, or at least TikTok didn't indicate this. They didn't seem too interested in politics. They seemed like, we're just letting you use TikTok. I mean, I don't think they were any different than what Mark Zuckerberg does on Meta or anything else, but somehow they were they were definitely focused on more than any other social media platform. And that was a mistake by Joe Biden. That was a mistake by Joe Biden. So the Epstein files, I think we can argue, was probably another mistake. Iran's freedom isn't America's business. Some of these foreign wars, you can sometimes argue that what you see does impact the United States. I'm not sure I don't think that that's an example here. This is a conflict that is happening in the Middle East that really doesn't seem to have anything directly to do with the United States. And I would love for somebody to explain why, if they think it does have something directly to do with it, how exactly is that so? How exactly is that so? It would be interesting to know that. And I just think people are tired of seeing people living in tents in some of these cities. Certainly in California has a major homelessness problem, in a place that has a multi-billion-dollar industry sitting in the middle of it with regards to the tech sector. And yet people can't figure out, for whatever reason, the homelessness problem. We can't figure out healthcare in this country, but we can figure out how to send billions overseas to other countries. I can't figure that out. Can figure that out. And so, I mean, I do think that there's something certainly to a lot of that. It's just sort of like, I think people get tired of finding out that their tax money is going overseas. I mean, scroll here. I think I'm on this page. Yeah, I am. So, America first, seeing a lot of that. Oh man, seeing a lot of that. Even the right-wing racist Nick Fuentes is out here talking about America first, and nobody's making the argument. A lot of right-wing commentary on this. Nobody seems to be wanting to make the argument that this makes any sense for the United States as a piece of foreign policy that benefits the American people. And this is where Democrats and Republicans start agreeing with each other on stuff. As contentious as our politics are in this country, and as the big disagreements that we have and everything else, this is the moment where you see Democrats and Republicans join together as one. We have a foreign conflict that nobody can figure out why we're there, particularly if that foreign conflict starts to put our troops in harm's way. I don't know too many people who don't have anybody in their family who's not in the military. I have a sister that was career Navy and a nephew that was in the Army and served in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I'm telling you, it is very stressful, as I think anyone out there listening to me knows. It is very stressful when your family member is in a war zone of some type, or someplace, some country, to get hit by somebody. And what we've seen with the USS Cole and some other things that have happened, people just get killed just because they happen to be, someplace and somebody decides to pull a terrorist attack. I mean, it's just, there's no rhyme or reason, and it is extremely stressful. First, you can see, of course, not particularly stressful for the Trump administration, because they have, I shouldn't say Trump administration, the Trump family, because they don't have anybody who served in the military that I know of. Again, if I'm wrong, please correct me in the chat. Has anybody in the Trump family served in the military? Does his dad serve in the military? I don't know. His dad was in that era where like everybody served in the military. In certain eras, World War II, Greatest Generation, where everyone served. Obviously, with the draft during Vietnam. But as somebody who has several people in my family who served in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, I have a World War One. I don't think I have a World War II, but I have a World War One. And I'm telling you, it is unbelievable to me how casual people are with other people's kids when they send them overseas. This is Rand Paul, of course, the libertarian senator from Kentucky. As yet another preemptive war As yet, another preemptive war has begun in the Middle East. John Quincy Adams's words of logic still ring true. Wherever wherever the standard of freedom and independence has been or shall be unfurled, there will her heart, her benedictions, and her prayers be. I've never seen that John Quincy Adams quote before. I'm sorry, the first time I'm reading it, sorry to stumble. Like most Americans, I have sympathy for the plight of the Iranian people and all subjected people around the globe, from North Korea to Tibet. But as Adams wrote, America goes not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. And I'm sure he's going to get into the World War Powers Act. So, yeah, of course he is, because if you skip 2 sentences down, the Constitution conferred the power to declare war or initiate war to Congress for a reason, to make war less likely. Well, not with this president, as he does whatever the heck he wants. Sorry to stumble on that. I'm just tired. I got to eat anyway. I will say that draft dodging is in fact a Trump family tradition. I mean, has anyone in the Trump family served in any war or been drafted in any war? I know there's a lot of people out there who, of course, didn't want to serve. I mean, who wants a war? Who wants war? What is it really good for? Absolutely nothing. It's true. Wars are terrible. Innocent people get killed. People in their prime, young people get killed. I don't care who it is, what it is. It's always a bad thing. And it's never good. You get these stories back. They're terrible. People dying at 21 years old, 20 years old. Again, we're getting this thing with the school girls. Again, not confirmed, but we are seeing some photos that look like it might be real. I want to be cautious because a lot of these countries are very good at propaganda and running propaganda. And so you do have to sort of figure out, hey, is this true before you go jumping into that question. So at any rate, this is the first hours of war in Iran. Once again, I wish I could find the video. Boy, do I wish I could find. His grandfather was also a draft dodger. I wish I could find the video. Somebody put a video up of Ben Netanyahu, all the times that he has said something about how there's going to be a nuclear device in Iran. And it just goes back like 10 years. Oh, they're getting it. They're a few hours from 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 it. Like, and it's not, it never actually happens. But anyway, there does seem to be kind of a united feeling out there of this is a terrible freaking idea. A terrible idea. I just happen to think this is related to the Epstein news, because that Epstein news was just huge. It was absolutely huge at the beginning of this week. And it was, gosh, it was one of these things I thought, man, that not to say I thought it was true or false. It's just the news itself that the Justice Department removed certain documents out of the files as related to Trump. We'd heard that before. Not saying we hadn't heard that before. That was no big breaking news that, they took out files that were related to Trump. The part that was the breaking news was that there was an allegation there that was centered to the president of the United States. Again, whether or not that's true, we don't know. We don't know that. And that's where everybody's trying to head into, okay, who is it making the allegation? Where is that report in the files? What exactly was removed? How can we look at it? Do have to be cautious. I believe in due process, no matter who it is, what it is, Democrat, Republican. Please hit the like button. So I'm not jumping to the conclusion there. I just think it was interesting that news broke four days ago in NPR. And all of a sudden, we got war happening and Iran, 4 days later. It's not to say that we didn't have some rumors of war, but it hadn't happened yet. I mean, it's one thing to have rumors, another thing that what actually happens. Those are two completely different moments. And to have this wake up and have this happen this morning is pretty stupendous. So this is interesting. I do think the two things are related, which is why I created this video. But at any rate, I'm glad everybody joined. There's a lot of questions, a lot of stuff going on in chat here. I appreciate it. Please hit the like button. I appreciate that as well. Weren't the nuclear capabilities obliterated? Good question. I don't know. I mean, I'd heard that. We'd heard that. I just don't think Iran has enough resource to put together a nuclear program, the likes of which could really be dangerous for that region. And I think if they did put that type of program together, we certainly would have known about it by now, because they probably would have struck Israel. I think Israel has every right to be concerned about Iran. There's no doubt about that. But it's funny to think about the fact that I think it's only Israel in the Middle East that has a nuclear weapon. I think they're the only country in the Middle East, I think I'm right about that, that has a nuclear weapon. Everybody else is trying to figure out one, or been talking about one, but they don't have it. Various stages of not having a nuclear weapon. This is the thing I was talking about. Let me see if I can get. This is an interesting video that is running on. Let me just see how this looks on my channel. 1 second, because I am off the page that I should be on to see that. But at any rate, this somebody put together a video of Netanyahu talking about this. Worried about the nuclear abilities of Iran. Again, he has every right to worry. He has every right to worry, and he should. He absolutely should. He's there to protect his nation, just like every other leader of every other nation. So, no problem with that. It's just that let me see. I don't think I did this right. I could just play it from this position. Let me see. I could play this from this position, but basically, it's Ben Netanyahu talking endlessly about this issue of let me see 1 second here. Give me 1 second. I'm just adjusting screens. Adjusting screens. I mean, it's Ben Netanyahu talking endlessly, adjusting the share screen, about his concern, as he should be, with regard to getting nuked. I mean, he should be concerned about it. There's nobody that's going to say that. There's nobody that's going to say that Ben Netanyahu shouldn't be concerned about some sort of nuclear device near where he is. I mean, I think it makes perfect sense. But it is interesting that they're the only country that has that capability. Hopefully nobody will ever use it, no matter who it is. But this was a very interesting video that somebody put together on this very topic. I thought it was clever.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year.
They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the enriched uranium for an atom bomb.
Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade.
Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
Now,
Saddam has nuclear weapons. The terror network will have nuclear weapons.
Now, that's interesting. The video goes back. This screen here shows you that the first time he starts saying that, I wouldn't say the first time, but the first video on this thing is 1995. That he's saying, wow, this is a big concern. So that's something that has been brought up that is interesting to think about. Somebody put together that montage. It doesn't look like it's AI to me. It's hard to tell. I always have to ask that question as we analyze and look at things here on the internet. This would be pretty verifiable stuff, because MSNBC and CNN and congressional testimony, it'd be pretty hard to fake that. Although you can fake anything. I will say that you can fake anything. And it is, difficult to verify things now. And that's exactly the way these tech people want it. They want us confused. They want us not knowing what's real. I'm convinced of that, but one of the things is, when you have reporting overseas, you're going to have people who are on the ground at the location, and people on the ground at the location are really hard to beat, and particularly when they start doing video. And you're going to get that in the next few hours from various war reporters. This is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. Thanks for joining. Thanks for hitting the like button. Thanks for subscribing. You want to subscribe? I didn't think I was going to be doing a live on this. This is not my area of expertise at all. I mean, I do politics in the United States, Politics in Virginia, politics in New York. I do not generally do anything on the Middle East. This is probably the one and only Middle East video you've seen. And it's really not about the Middle East because I, again, don't have much expertise in this. It's really about American politics. Goes back to the Epstein question and the question of elections with regard to fair elections and whether or not President Trump might interfere with the elections in the United States. That is going to be told. That story is going to be told over the next 200 days. This is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. I'll be back very soon, usually at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. at night, but I can pull a fast one and do something like this in the middle of the day on a Saturday. It is noon on February 28th. Thank you for joining.
Somewhere. What's going on? Thank you. Are you watching now?
Yeah. No, I was watching when I left, but it's excellent. I love it. I love the traffic's flowing up. You were in Brooklyn last night. Where?
I was in Bushwick.
Okay, I have my grandmother's house in Crown Heights.
Oh, yeah.
So when I saw you, I was trying to look at what the pizza place was to see where
As soon as we got there, someone recognized the pizza place. They're like, we got to get out of here. Someone had
get out. It was great.
blown up our spot.
Their show was freaking fantastic.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it, man. Love it.